Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name's Ariel Leggett. I'm the Senior Account Manager here at Retail Control Systems. Rob Pavek and myself will be showing you and talking through the Counterpoint 8.6 release. Everybody is muted. That's intentional. So it would be a little bit chaotic if everybody was able to talk. If you have questions for us, please pop them into the Q&A or the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation. We will definitely have time for Q&A at the end. If there's a question during a certain section and it makes sense for us to answer it there, then we'll go ahead and answer it there, but we'll definitely save time for Q&A at the end. So make sure you put all your questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be recording this webinar, and you will also receive a copy of the slide deck with the webinar recording. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Rob. Let's get started.
All right. So Counterpoint 8.6 release, big deal. Let's get started. So this is definitely a major release. It includes the following new features and revisions. Counterpoint is now PCI DSS out of scope. There is new enhanced security for manual card payment entries. We finally have support for Microsoft SQL Server 2022 Express, and that's included in the prerequisites now. And then we also have support for Windows Server 2022. We are losing support for Windows 10 32-bit, and that is discontinued. There is now a new external payment gateway, so no more CP gateway. And then if you're in Canada, there's new methods of Canadian card on file support with the P400 devices, and then the manual entry card data on those same devices. We're not going to go through those today. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of those changes also. All right. So here's the overview. This is, before you get started on updating your environment. So first and foremost, you must obtain and install a new registration file, whether it be the INI file or the hub file, to update to NCR Counterpoint version 8.6. Caveat, make sure your subscription is updated or else you will not have that updated registration file, okay? There's also a new feature, which is a big deal, offline ticket update option. You can now update your environment during business hours utilizing offline ticket entry. So basically, it saves you a lot of time, long nights. It's a great option to be able to utilize, the most efficient way of updating your environment without having to stay up all night and hoping it all works the next day. So another thing, when updating from Counterpoint to Counterpoint version 8.6 from version 8.4.6.19 or earlier, be sure to update your system to version 8.5.7.2 first and then update to version 8.6. If you are using the NCR Counterpoint API, you must upgrade to the CP API version 2.4 before using Counterpoint version 8.6. It's not compatible with the earlier version of the CP API. All the settings, users, endpoints, they'll be retained when upgrading the API. If you need to refer to any documentation regarding that, there's the link. I don't know if Ariel said it or not, but everyone will be getting a copy of this slideshow. So, you have that available for you whenever you're ready to review that. All right. PCI DSS out of scope. What does this mean for you? Well, because NCR Counterpoint doesn't attain or store cardholder data and now requires the use of payment terminals and MSRs that are configured as point-to-point encryption, P2PE, version 8.6 is out of scope for PCI DSS compliance. So this out of scope status reduces the overall PCI DSS compliance burden for merchants. It simplifies the validation, questionnaires, assessments, and can help decrease infrastructure costs by allowing you guys to streamline your IT environment. Major caveat, warning, this only applies to NCR Counterpoint, all right? Software, databases, anything NCR related. You are still responsible for understanding and ensuring compliance with all other guidelines regarding PCI DSS that apply outside of Counterpoint, including requirements for network firewalls, wireless access points, VPN, remote access, etc. All right, so just make that a point. Still not over. You still have to do a little bit more, but a lot less regarding Counterpoint.
Thank you for pointing that out, Rob. I think it's really important to note that PCI DSS is always like a kind of a local responsibility for each site. And now with Counterpoint being PCI DSS out of scope, it's going to take your PCI self-assessment questionnaire from a giant questionnaire down to a much smaller questionnaire. And then I also wanted to reiterate, there's a potential to help decrease some infrastructure costs on your end as well with this new PCI DSS out of scope for Counterpoint.
All right, thank you, Ariel. We're going to go on to the next slide now. These are the changes within Counterpoint regarding PCI DSS out of scope. So as we just mentioned, Counterpoint only supports P2PE payment terminals and MSR. So non-P2PE devices, they are no longer supported and they cannot be configured through the device management window, okay? Another thing that they also got rid of is in the store module within Counterpoint, there is no required encryption level setting. It's been removed because there's only one requirement. It has to be P2PE. So you don't even have to worry about that any longer. Another thing that you want to keep in mind, if you're using older payment terminals, such as non-EMV Ingenico ISC250s, those are no longer supported as well and cannot be configured through device management. So if that is something that you do currently utilize within your business, the first thing you want to do, get new payment terminals and get those ordered before you go through the update, or else you will lose access to being able to take payments.
I just want to add some clarifying points on this slide. So non-P2PE devices, why would people have those in their environment or be using them? Some people might be using them for credit cards, maybe swipe gift cards, which most of our gift cards integrated in the system use a barcode to read. So something to think about there. And then employee IDs. So there's actually a supported P2PE encrypted employee ID swipe. So if you're using employee IDs, we want to definitely validate, are you using that P2PE device or are you using a different device before you upgrade Counterpoint? And then in regard to the non-EMV payment terminals, I've had questions about this in the past. What does that actually mean? If a card reader is taking 80% EMV transactions or more, then it's considered EMV enabled. So if it's less than 80% EMV transactions, those are not going to be supported devices.
Right. And you can double check that by utilizing the Ingenico utility and ensuring that the EMV encryption is checked. So that's how you can verify before you upgrade.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, next slide. All right, so there is a new enhanced security for manual card entry payments. This has been significantly updated. So this version 8.6, it has introduced a new process for the on-screen manual entry of card payments. The dialog now appears whenever the payment terminal and MSR are not connected to a workstation or are not available. So meaning if your PIN pads are down, or if you are taking phone orders on a back office computer that doesn't have a PIN pad, this is the feature that you will now use, all right? It provides a secure method for users to enter card details, including AVS and CVV, and then it will process the card payments manually in compliance with the current PCI DSS standards. It happens outside the Counterpoint. So the manual entry dialog can also be used to record card on-file records for customers. So when a user selects the Add or Edit button on the Payment tab of the customer's window, the manual entry dialog appears that you see on your right, allowing the user to enter and save all of the card on file details for that customer. So before you can use this new manual entry to process payments manually or enter card file and data for customers, you must install the NCR Counterpoint payment service on each of your LAN, WAN, standalone servers or hub servers, and also for each offline station, okay? So what that goes into, we'll actually go into the next slide and we'll go through the limitations of the manual card entry payment. So these are what you cannot do any longer with utilizing this module. You cannot process refunds using the manual entry dialog. You cannot use the manual entry dialog to process payments while you're receiving stand-in authorizations, as in store and forward. You must enter the CVV, CFV, CID data to complete a payment or to record a card on file with the manual entry payment solution. Cards that do not include this cannot be processed, unfortunately. So you have to have that. If you have checked in the point of sale stores credit cards tab, Visa MC, AVS, American Express, AAV, or any Discover AVS checked, then it will be required for you to input that information when you're using this module. If they are not selected for your store, you'll just have the basic expiration date, CVV, CVS, and then obviously the card number. All right, so those are the things you cannot do with this manual card entry. And some notes that are good to have for your more understanding. So because the manual entry dialog is a component of the NCR SecurePay payment gateway, the method of entering card payments manually allows Counterpoint to remain out of scope for PCI DSS compliance. The dialog replaces the previous validations dialog that allowed for the manual entry of card data. So if you were utilizing that, it does replace that fully, and this is the new method you'll be using. This is a good caveat. To avoid the timestamp out of range or expired error in manual entry dialog, make sure that the system clocks on all of the managed computers in your offline environment, server and offline stations, are all synchronized to the current time. That is a definitely random gotcha, but that's a good note to take note of, because there are all kinds of different timestamps when you're setting these things up. So it's a good thing to review that before you update Counterpoint. And then after you enter the complete and corrected payment information in the manual entry dialog, click on submit and wait for the transaction to complete. And it will alert you whether there's any errors or issues during that process as well. And if there is, reach out to us and we can help you identify and troubleshoot those. All right. So now, how do we install it? So let's go through the quick process real quick. Once you've installed Counterpoint version 8.6, let's follow these steps. And you have to do this again on your servers, terminal servers, and offline workstations. So you would have your complete NCR Counterpoint image, the 8.6 complete zip that you get off the Radiant retail portal. And then there is an executable called the payment service setup.exe. It says double click. I always right click, run as administrator. Just make sure, you just get in the habit of doing that. Then once you run that, you'll be able to select your Counterpoint instance. If this is in a shared environment, it'll just go right through and it will know what Counterpoint instance it is applying this to. Once you install the payment service, then click OK. The installer will install Microsoft.NET 6 SDK. That's the big component that this installs to be able to utilize this module. When the installation is complete, you'll see the complete dialog, and then you'll just click Finish to close the installer. A couple notes to keep in mind. If you are prompted to restart during the installation of the payment service, click OK. When the computer restarts, the installation will continue automatically once you log back into Windows. Obviously, you want to repeat these steps for each of your remote servers, offline workstations, if you're using it in a multi-site or offline ticket entry environment. So a little bit extra work. After each after each register that you are installing this on, it is going to prompt for a reboot. So be prepared for that. It will reboot every time.
Rob, I have a question here. This is specifically for the manual payment entry?
Correct. Yep.
So if people aren't planning to use that, are they able to skip this step, or is this step still required as part of the upgrade?
They're totally able to skip it. If it's not pertinent to them, then there is really no reason to take the time to install this module.
Okay.
It's not going to be used. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Absolutely. All right. So once it's installed, a couple verification checks that you want to do is just make sure that the payment service is running. So just as you would the NCR device service, you want to go to Windows Start, go to Services to display the services window, and then you'll find the payment service and make sure the status is indicating that it's running. If it stops, click Start and close the service window. Just a good verification on your end. Make sure that what you just installed is running, is working as intended, and if it's not, go ahead and start it back up and you'll be good to go. So if there's any issues with the payment service, this is the first troubleshooting step you want to go through. Is it even running? So at that point, once you verify that, if it's not, give us a call. All right. What's up, Ariel?
I have a great question from Nick. Thanks, Nick. Can the manual entry dialog box not be used and cards can be added to customer profile or for phone orders via entering the credit card number directly into a PIN pad?
Yes. Yes. If that's the way you do it currently, that will remain the same moving forward. Correct. The manual entry dialog, that module is specifically for if your payment terminals are not working or simply you do not have any payment terminals connected to the workstation. So if you have those payment terminals, that is going to be the preferred method of always inputting those card numbers manually. All right. All right, we got some more support. So SQL Server 2022 Express is now supported. It is included in the Counterpoint prerequisites. So when you're running those for the first time, just make sure you click that checkbox and it will install that for you. Also, the prereqs directory of the complete NCR Counterpoint image also has the executable as well. So that automatically comes with that. And you don't need to run it through prerequisites if you don't need to necessarily run that, but you still want to upgrade it, then you still have that standalone and executable for you to be able to run. You can use any of those mentioned above to install the new instance. So some definite notes to take in mind before upgrading your SQL Server. Back up your Counterpoint databases before upgrading SQL, always. Make sure you have your backups. If you're coming from SQL Server 2008 R2 Express to SQL Server 2022 Express, you're going to have to uninstall SQL Server 2008 R2 and then install SQL Server 2022. The upgrade it doesn't play nice. So you're going to have to go through that whole uninstallation process and then update and then install again to be able to update that from that specific version. Again, same as the manual payment entry. If you're upgrading and using the Counterpoint prerequisites installer, if you get rebooted, once it's rebooted, the installer will resume automatically afterwards. So no worries there if it prompts you. You can just go ahead and reboot. All right. We now have Windows Server 2022 supported. So that's going to be really big, get us into more of the new age servers and everything of that nature. So if you need more information about the supported operating systems, I put the hyperlink in there for the system requirements and also the installation guide on how to install Counterpoint on the server, just in case you guys need that refresher. Another thing that's great is Windows Server 2022 is also supported for use with NCR Counterpoint 8572. So if you are on that older version where it says that you need to update to 8572 first, you're still good to go. It will still work. So you won't run into any issues when performing the upgrade. Windows 10 32-bit support has finally been discontinued. So if you're running any of those OSs on any of your workstations, be sure to get those updated before updating to version 8.6. Okay.
So I just want to clarify, because when I first saw this, I was like, end of support for Windows 10. What? It's only Windows 10 32-bit, Windows 10 64-bit, which is typically what we see out in the field is the 64-bit version of Windows 10 is still supported with Counterpoint. It's just that Windows 10 32-bit, it's not supported. So we want to get that off those machines, get them onto 64-bit, get them on Windows 11, you choose.
Yep, all of that is supported, just no longer 32-bit. Thank you,
Thanks,
Ariel.
Rob.
Yeah. All right. So another change made within Counterpoint was the external payment gateway. So merchants who prefer to process card payments outside of Counterpoint can now select the external option from the payment gateway list box on the credit cards tab of the store's window. This setting will also allow you to bypass Counterpoint's card processing entirely and removes all other fields and options from the credit cards tab. So if you've been using the obsolete CP gateway option to allow for the external card payment processing, the external option will be selected for your stores automatically when you update to Counterpoint V86. So you don't need to worry about anything. The workaround that you were using is now going to be the standard moving forward, and it's now called external payment gateway. So really, you don't have to do anything on your end. Just know that is now an option available to you, and it does change that across the board within Counterpoint when you choose that option. All right. All right, some RCS recommendations from us. So we highly recommend getting an environment inspection if you're coming from 8564 or earlier of Counterpoint before upgrading to 8.6. Or honestly, if you haven't had an environment inspection yet to date from us, it's highly recommended that you get us to go through that with you. You know, this provides a lot of good information about your your environment, what could make it more optimized, more efficient. It just all will benefit you once we can identify what issues you're experiencing and how to make it better, right? We actually did an environment inspection webinar, and that's available on our RCS YouTube channel. So you can go check that out, peep that out, and provide you everything that goes through there. And if that's something that you're interested in, reach out to your account manager. We'll get you squared away. And then another thing is definitely ensure that you're receiving the marketing materials released by RCS. That way you can keep up to date on any new releases, release notes, patches, and our service packs for Counterpoint. If you currently aren't receiving this, it would behoove you to reach out to your account manager and let them know, since we frequently send a lot of products and support updates, and we don't want you missing out on anything. And that might just be one more opportunity that we send something out that'll make your business more efficient. And that's what we're here for, right? So you got anything for that, Ariel? Nothing?
No, thank you for mentioning the environment inspection as well, and we'll make sure that that webinar is linked in the slide deck, so you won't have to go hunting on the YouTube channel for it. It'll be linked right in the deck. It's a very useful service. It can uncover things like maybe offline stations aren't communicating correctly, maybe data purge recommendations, or if you're hosting your own server, maybe backups, indexing, things like that aren't running, and that's why things are slow or crashing for you. And then if you're hosted on Arrow, this is actually a free service that we provide because we want to make sure everybody's system is optimized and is performing at just at its peak all the time. So, and as far as receiving marketing materials, we're putting out webinars once a month. We've got our newsletter. We've got blogs that are being released, I think, twice a month. And then as Rob mentioned, new product releases, things like mobile solutions and other things that we're putting out there to just be innovative and provide our customers what they need in the field, integrations, things like that. So if you're not staying on the pulse of those, the best way to keep up to date is through a strategic planning meeting with your account manager, but having those product releases and announcements is really important too.
Thanks, Ariel. Perfect. All right. And then here is the release information of the newer versions, when they're expected to release, and the patches. So currently, where we're at is on the left-hand side, The supported releases are 8.5.7.1, 8.5.7.2, and 8.6 that we just went through, okay? So we have now gone into the second box. They have released up to 8.6.02, and those are technically patches. So if there is any patch, that comes out that strictly identifies with any bugs or issues that you're experiencing, please reach out to RCS. We can work on getting that updated for you and provide documents if you want to do it yourself. It's a rather easy process, and so, or go through training. And so just keep in mind the supported versions that are being outlined right here. You'd probably see 8.6.1 by next year, I'd say, and then 8.6.2 probably halfway through that, but it's not determined. But just make sure that you're keeping up to date, because if you are not on one of these versions, you are currently not supported. And if there's any issues or major troubleshooting or major, anything that you're having issues with Counterpoint, if we have to go to NCR, the first thing they're going to say is update them. So you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence to stay in these release windows and stay supported. So you'll have this deck, and you'll be able to kind of figure this out accordingly for how your business is and when it would potentially need to be updated.
Thanks, Rob. While we're on this slide, I just wanted to talk through some of these numbers and the difference between an upgrade and a service pack and a patch, because there's a lot of different terminology here and a lot of different numbers. So the update currently that we're looking at, everyone on this webinar is most likely on 8.5. I think there might be a couple of you out there that are still holding off on that 8.4.6.19 version. We really got to get you up to date. But anything from that second digit that's an increase is going to be considered an upgrade. So from 8.5.x, from 8.6 to 8.6.x, that's considered an upgrade. Anything from that third digit is considered a service pack when you're increasing those numbers. And if you're going out to that fourth digit, so that 8.6.01, 8.6.02, 8.6.03, those are all patches. Okay, so the upgrade, many of you already have talked to your account manager. You might already be in the upgrade queue. You've received quotes for that. If you need, sorry about that, I hit the space bar next. If you need pricing for what the upgrade service costs, your account manager can provide that. Service packs are very similar process. The patches, however, are just an executable. If you're hosting your own environment, you can execute that on your server and all of your offline stations. If you're hosted on Arrow, we're going to go ahead and apply the patch for you and send you instructions and a guide on how to apply that to your offline stations on your own. So it's, like Rob said, a pretty simple process. It's just an executable. Click next, 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 and apply those patches to get the fixes if it's a release that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So after that, I believe that's all she wrote, guys. Thank you for sticking with us, and I guess we'll open up the floor, right?
All right, we have a question. Woohoo! Would you please expand on installing the upgrade during business hours? Does that mean the entire upgrade can be done during business hours, or is that specific to offline ticket entry? Great question, Mike.
It is specific to offline ticket entry only. If that is what you have to utilize. So, some prerequisites that you have to think about currently is store and forward put in place for your offline ticket entries. Are you able to take cards? Within that, if you lose connectivity, so that's something you want to be set up. But if you have network connectivity, yeah, you could just run in offline ticket entry all day and update your server, update if you have terminal servers, or if you're a LAN environment, update the server and then each offline ticket entry register and go through that process. And essentially, whenever you're completed, the CP services will be running again, and rebuilds will be sent down to the offline ticket entry workstations, and those tickets will then be sent up, everything that you've done during the day, and sync up to the server, and you will be fully updated. So that is, that's the name of the game. You have to have offline ticket entry though for this to happen. You cannot use Counterpoint Online while you're updating.
So if you have offline ticket entry and it's installed on your registers and already functioning correctly, which we hope that you're testing that once a week to make sure your stations are communicating properly, and or get your environment inspection, because we report on all the stations offline and whether they're communicating correctly or not. If you have the offline feature turned on, installed, and working, then you actually can upgrade your environment during the business day while your store is staying offline. And then, Rob, is what you were saying that once you upgrade everything, it's going to push the updates down to offline, so you don't have to run an update, or you still have to run the update to offline?
You still need to run the update to offline, because that will include the WAN client for your Counterpoint Online that you'll be updating. It'll be updating your cpsql.1 top level folder for the offline ticket entry, as well as applying the patch. And so, basically once you're done with that update process, that register would then sync down automatically, sync up and down automatically to the server. And then you'll be able to start using Counterpoint Online while those tickets that you were taking during the upgrade process sync up to the server.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Is that good from 8.5 to 8.6, or is it only good for anything 8.6 and above?
8.6 and above. This is a new thing that they're doing. Well, 8.5.7.2 basically and above.
So you can go from 8.5.7.2 to 8.6, which is considered an upgrade, doing that update during a business day. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Correct. And then moving forward from any consecutive update after that.
Awesome. Mike, let me know if that answered your question. We have another question. Great info. Thanks. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Mike. Okay, this is very helpful. Thanks, Jennifer. Can you share the current queue for upgrades? What is the current backlog if we were to sign for upgrade services?
I am booked. I mean, I'm booked all the way probably till the end of July. I have some options available. So, but what I normally do is 3 upgrades a week. And for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm booked fully out. So we're looking at mid-July, end July of when we're able to actually get around to that. We can push it up further. We can push it up closer if we really need to. We'll work with you. If you're interested, get it in now. At this point, that way we can make sure that you are taken care of as quickly as possible, because this is very popular and we have had a lot of people reach out, and I'm the one who does them all, so I'm getting booked pretty quick, all right?
Especially with that PCI DSS out of scope. That's such a hot feature that people are really looking to implement. And then the support for Server and SQL 2022. So, okay, so that question's answered. Jennifer had another question. What is the upgrade, kind of the timeline from start to finish? So say you're in the queue, you're scheduled. I know we do a kickoff call, we set key dates and timelines, and then it can be, I've seen some projects just based on customer need for their timing take several months, versus if we're working as fast as Rob can work, it can be done within, what do you say, Rob, 1 to 2 weeks from kickoff to completion?
Yep, that's normally how long it takes, is 1 to 2 weeks if we're all aligned on the same page and want to get it done efficiently and quickly. Yeah, we have the kickoff. We set up the update within that 1 to 2 week period after our kickoff is still, while our kickoff is still fresh. And putting a timeline on exactly how long it would take to update a company is there's plenty of factors that you have to keep in mind. How many registers, right? If you have an abundance of customizations that could, cause issues when updating, you have to navigate through that. What your e-commerce integrations, you want to make sure we verified quite a few. Outbound is one of them that is still getting back to us, just to let you know. And but everyone else we have verified 8.6 works with. So you would have to also just make sure that you talk to your rep at whatever API integration you have to make sure 8.6 is good to go. If you have any questions about that, reach out to us as well. We have verified a majority of them just in case, it's taken me between 2 to 10 hours sometimes. You never know what you're going to run into. So putting a hard timeline on that is definitely a little bit more difficult. But I will say it is always, I've been still doing overnight upgrades. So I think the longest one for 8.6, it was 15 registers and 3 servers, and it took me about 6 hours.
That's pretty efficient, Rob. You're getting really good at this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
and then, and I think that speaks to the hands-on work and how much time that typically takes as well. So great. Thank you. Another question from Nick: does API 2.4 work with 8572? So could he upgrade to the new API and have it work with 8572 before upgrading to 8.6?
That's a great question. I'm actually not sure about that.
We'll have to get back to you
on that one. Yeah, that's a great question. I would assume yes, because they have supported everything else regarding version 8.6 for 8572, and they also, state if you're upgrading from an older version, you have to upgrade to 8572 first. So I'm assuming, I don't like assuming,
we don't assume, you know what they say about that.
But,
we will verify and get back to you.
Yeah, I feel like you're probably right. Yep.
We'll verify and get back to you.
Yeah.